Off by calling the roll, if you would, Connie, please.
Bates.
Here.
Mangum.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Satterfield.
Here.
Swanson. Here. Dahlquist.
Here. Okay, agenda item number 2 is fiscal year 2027 benefits presentation. So we have Holly Harnsberger, our benefits coordinator here at the city of Pocatello, and AJ Argyle from GBS Benefits. They're going to give us a presentation.
Jay's gonna join us.
Okay, and Jay Seidel as well, our human resources manager.
Good morning. Would you like us to introduce ourselves again?
I think we're good, but I called you a manager and you're a director, so sorry.
I hope that doesn't bleed into the next section of the agenda, so we'll go from there. So we appreciate the time today to talk about benefits, and we were here before in a previous budget meeting. And for that reason, we were here just to give an update on quotes and things that led into the 2027 budget for all health insurance. We're back today with some final recommendations, and the goal for us is to get the council's input on a plan to move forward. When we re-enroll for insurance, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get everything in prep. So the plan is to have that rolled out by early fall. So we're at a point now where we do need to make a final decision on the path that we go forward with. So AJ's put a lot of work into this. I'm going to turn the time over to him. He's going to walk through some slides, and then feel free to interrupt with any questions you have along the way.
Thank you. AJ Argyle with GBS Benefits. Kind of just to recap where we are, where we were. So we talked about the initial renewal that came in at the 17.9. The revised renewal was the 16.5. And then the revised renewal came in at 12.5. And if you remember, Pacific Source wanted a chance to go back to the table, and they wanted to be able to come down again because they didn't want to lose our business. They kept giving me deadlines, and they kept pushing those deadlines back and over until finally a couple weeks ago I said, look, I got to have a number, or just tell me you're not going to give me one. They're like, we'll give you a number, but that number is going to go up. And the reason being for that is our claims actually in May went up to 130%. So basically what that means, for every dollar that we gave Pacific Source, they paid out $1.30 in claims. So their concern is that claims have turned back to the direction they were. We had 5 really good months. Then we had that bad one, but essentially Pacific Source is saying we're not going to come off the 12.5. So we talked about our claims are down significantly, the 56% or 2.7 million. Our fiscal loss ratio still run about 82%. Our trailing 12 loss ratio is 105%. That's the last 12 months. And in April, we ran about 78%. And then we ran, like I talked about, basically 130% for May. We did do a repricing. I told you I was a little concerned about Select Health's rates at the local hospital here versus what Pacific Source had, because Pacific Source had obviously a larger block of business than Select Health, so they usually get deeper discounts. We did run that. There was actually a significant difference between Pacific Source and Select Health, a really big difference. We went back to Portneuf and asked for an additional discount. They did give us that discount, but we're still significantly off where we were with Pacific Source. So what that means long-term is we could end up paying more for our claims than we would have with Pacific Source. And if we were to use the numbers that we have projected going forward, that could be as much as $1 million more with Select Health than we would with Pacific Source. So what that means is after our rate guarantee, that's going to make things a little bit sticky. And there's just those numbers again. I don't know if you want to look through those or not, but you can see Select Health. The increase is anywhere from 533,000 up to 778. And then the lowest number we've got from Pacific Source is $1.1 million. It's about $474,000 different between the two carriers going into next year. Pacific Source, like we talked about, does not have a rate cap on that second year. Currently, their best option is $325,000 more than Select Health's least competitive option and $570,000 more than Select Health's most competitive. We talked about the employees are actually pretty happy overall and HR with Pacific Source. Their initial increase was $1.58 million, and their best offer is an increase of $1.1 million. This is just a breakout of Pacific Source, what that looks like, and those dollars. Select Health is anywhere from 6 to 8.82% increase depending on what network we utilize. They do have a rate cap on that second year, which I think is huge, of 12.9% on that second year. Their increases range from $533,000 to $778,000 that first year, and the max increase of roughly $1.2 million the second year. So a total 2-year increase in cost of $1.7 to $2 million, depending on which option we go with. And if you remember, about a $1.5 million increase initially with Pacific Source. Over 2 years, we're ending up pretty close to what we would be 1 year with Pacific Source. But we did do the claims repricing, and that did come back, and that favored Pacific Source quite a bit. Here are those rates right there. The option that we're recommending is that last option on the far right there. The only difference would be opening up the network to the value network is what that would be. It's a Utah network. It would be a $500 deductible when you go in that network. The out-of-pocket still stays the same at the $4,500, but the deductible would drop significantly. And that would be a $710,000, 8% increase. And that's the one we're kind of leaning towards right now, and that's the one that we'd recommend.
And also the 7.12 though, as well, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, there is a 7.12. Actually, no, that's right. The 7.12 is the one, I apologize, was the one we were pushing towards, because that one was just the 2,500 and the 4,500, that second option there, I apologize. Any questions on that?
AJ, could you expand that column? Or not expand it, just increase the size of it, please? I'm having a hard time seeing it all.
Can I do that?
On PowerPoint, I'm not sure.
I don't think you can.
Can you do a control plus?
Where's Aaron?
Yeah. Oh, can you?
Oh,
There we go.
Which numbers are we looking at?
Yeah, that's perfect. And which company was that?
that's Select Health.
Select Health? Okay, and that's the one you're recommending?
That's the one we're recommending for this year, and then we'd probably end up with them next year at that 12.9% cap. That is the cap. They could come in underneath that. I did have another city, the city of Rexburg, that I moved to Select Health. We had a 9.9% cap on that second year. They actually came in at a 5% renewal, and we negotiated a 0% renewal. So we don't necessarily, that doesn't mean we're gonna get 12.9%. That just means that's our ceiling. And the floor is wherever we can negotiate to. But the big thing is those discounts. We're gonna have to keep an eye on those and work with Portneuf on those, try to get those, a little closer together between Pacific Source and Select Health. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What would you say are going to be the most noticeable changes for the employees between these two? What are people going to feel or see right out of the gate?
The biggest issue you're gonna have is University of Utah goes out of network. You're gonna have to utilize IHC facilities. Huntsman is still in network. Primary Children's is in network. The Burn Center is still in network, but the problem you're gonna have is University of Utah goes out, and that can be a frustration. The other thing is Ozempic is not in their formulary, which means it's not covered. So either employees will qualify for Manjaro, or they would be forced off the Ozempic. So there could be some issues there. Those are the two biggest things we see when we move groups from Pacific Source to Select Health.
What, right now, do you have any idea how many folks utilize that U of U network that are going to be?
It was our second
shifted?
most utilized network outside of Portneuf, but about 92% of our claims are going through Portneuf. We don't have a lot going through the University of Utah right now, but we have had in the past. And so it just depends on what the employees have going on, whether or not they tap into that. That's usually their first option when they go south is the University of Utah, and now they're going to have to look at those IHC facilities going forward. So the Intermountain Health Network is going to be what they're going to have to look at. So if they were getting care, like say at the Utah Heart Institute, they're going to want to look for a cardiologist or something through Intermountain Health is what they'd have to do.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Mangum.
Your recommendation is, looks like Select Health, that 7.1212. Now, is this recommendation solely financially driven, or is it benefit driven?
It's a really good question. It's more financially, to be honest with you. I mean, as far as benefits go, they're about apples to apples, but there are, there's always going to be little differences in the formulary. The prescriptions are a little different. We had the same issue when we moved from Blue Cross to Pacific Source. But that network, that can be a sore spot for some employees, especially if they're getting some care at the University of Utah. So.
AJ, what's better, if anything, with Select Health, or is Select Health, or is everything else apples to apples?
I mean, as far as service and things go, it's about the same. Generally, Pacific Source is a little easier to work with, a little faster to resolve things. Select Health is a little bit bigger of a company. When I want to get something resolved, instead of getting resolved in 24 to 48 hours, it can drag on for a week to 10 days sometimes, which is frustrating. You have to kind of follow it through and keep tabs on something like that. Other than that, I mean, they're pretty similar.
But deductibles and out of
Oh,
pocket.
that's nothing. None of that changes. None of
it's
that
all
changes.
equal.
Deductibles, out of
Yeah,
pockets,
that's the big
co-payments. Yeah,
thing.
that all stays the same.
Yeah.
So the stronger network would probably be with Pacific Source, correct?
Yeah, the networks are almost identical except for when you go to Utah. So
Okay.
in Idaho, it's almost identical. Once in a while, and I found this out with Rexburg, you'll find a physician that's not in network with Select Health. But the thing I love about Select Health, I pick up the phone, make a phone call. I can usually have them added in 24 to 48 hours, as long as that physician is willing. Obviously, that physician has to be willing, but if they're willing, we can get it wrapped up pretty quick. So,
Question down here.
Hi, AJ. So what about nationwide specialized providers as far as being in network versus out of network on Pacific Source versus Select Health?
So we tap into the value and the med. That's that third network we do. So they have the value network and the med network. The value is in Utah. The med's going to be in Idaho. That'll also run through Colorado and also Nevada. Outside of that, we tap into the United Healthcare Network, which is a great national network. And I'll be honest, I haven't had any issues with their UHC network at all. We've got a lot of groups on them and have no problems with them. To be honest with you, we've moved a lot of our block to Select Health because they've been the most competitive, and nationally they've been great.
All right, thank you.
What about out of country?
Out of country is going to be the same with any carrier. Essentially, there's no coverage for it. They will reimburse. So what would happen is if you had to have care outside the country, you would pay for that, come back and submit a claim, and then they'd reimburse you for that.
I see, okay. And one more question. So this recommended plan, what is the price difference between Select Health and the most similar plan on Pacific Source?
It's about $474,000.
Okay.
It's pretty significant.
And it's without the rate cap guarantee.
Correct. Yeah. So then we pay the extra $474,000 this year, and then we don't know where we're going to end up next year. And Pacific Source has had some financial problems lately too. So, I mean, that's obviously a concern as well going forward.
And just so council knows that we've had some detailed meetings where we've really scrubbed the numbers out with AJ, Human Resources, and myself, and that this is the quote unquote staff recommendation is the 7.12. And just as AJ said, there were a few tweaks there on the providers, including the U of U, but we just saw it was really apples to apples, and that rate guarantee of the 12.9% in year two. We went through this in pretty detail. So that's the recommendation anyway.
Mayor,
Yes.
so you said 92% are, they use roughly in this area, so is that 8% of people who are using University of Utah?
No, because that's split up between, you've got people that are using Bingham, you've got people that are going north to Mountain View, Ermac. You've got some kids away at school that are utilizing some other things. University of Utah isn't that high right now though, but there's been years in the past, 2 and 3 years ago, where it was significantly higher. So
Are those situations like cancer or like really
we had some
bad?
heart issues. The cancers are fine because we've got Huntsman's in network, so that's going to be a non-issue. There were some cancers. I'm trying to remember.
Primary children's, but they're also.
They're also in network too. The heart is the only one that sticks out to me that was large, that would be an issue that I can think of. I mean, there's little things here and there, but nothing else that was substantial that I can remember, to be honest with you. So I think we're gonna be fine, but you may get some pushback from some employees, and I've had this happen with other groups when you move. If they've developed a relationship with that doctor at the University of Utah, and now they can't use that doctor anymore, there can be some frustration there. So I just wanted you to be aware of that going forward. And I mean, for $500,000, you know.
Okay, yes.
So can you talk to me about generally about costs from in-network versus out-of-network? Let's somebody had an existing physician and they wanted to keep that physician, but they're out-of-network. Can you give me an idea of the magnitude of cost increase?
Yeah, you're looking at, you know, the problem you've got is you got the $4,500 out of pocket currently up there, as you can see, and then it's an additional $5,000 out of network costs. So you're looking at $9,500 out of pocket for one person as opposed to $4,500. So yes, they could go out of network and they could go see the U. And the crazy thing is if you're tapping in the med network, a lot of the University of Utah doctors will be in network. But the problem is they do all their surgeries, of course, at the University of Utah, and now the facility is out of network, and now you're tapping into both out of pockets, which could be significant for the employees. So you're putting yourself at a risk of an additional $5,000 out of pocket by going out of network.
So is that it for the year, 5,000? If somebody wanted to spend the $5,000, they could use an out-of-network provider?
It depends, though, because it's up to the facility whether or not they accept the contractual adjustments of Select Health. And if they choose not to accept those contractual adjustments, there's a thing called balance billing, and they could come back and be balance billed. Let's say there was a heart surgery, something that ran $100,000. Okay, let's say Select Health only allows $80,000. You pay your additional $5,000. That facility has the right to come back and balance bill you for that additional $20,000. So it's a huge liability for the employee if they want to go out of network. We'd suggest they don't. If they did and they ended up in that situation, we'd hope they'd come to us and allow us to help negotiate on their behalf and help figure that out. But they are putting themselves at risk of balance billing. That's something, if it was me, I'd do my best to stay away from. So
And there's no cap on that.
there is no cap on that.
All right, thank you.
In the past, when we've had changes in health plans, what kind of employee education happens around that? So we get scenarios like you've just mentioned in front of people so they can be ready to plan correctly?
That's a really good question. And so we do a lot of heavy lifting in open enrollment. We plan on doing open enrollment the first week of August this year, as long as we can make decisions and get everything going. And so we actually, AJ and I go pretty heavy with in-person meetings for that full first week. We're very, very busy. And with Pacific Source change, we actually had a rep from Pacific Source there to answer questions as well. I'm uncertain if Select Health will do the
I can
same
get
thing,
that
but we
if
can
you want,
hammer
for
on
sure.
that.
Yeah.
And then really, I send out a lot of information. I do everything I can to help educate and help make it as proactive rather than reactive as possible, because I understand it's a really big, scary change. And then just along the transition as well, definitely here for questions and for help and for guidance and things along those lines.
And of course, health information utilization is private. Is there a way for you to see that and then make sure and talk to a specific employee that might
We
be?
can't look at specific employees. We see like the big claims that are coming in, so we understand that there is an impact, and so you typically do general education on things like that and hope that the proper people are listening, and that's all I can do.
Okay.
And we do make ourselves available, so if they do have those personal questions and things, they can always ask us. And, you know, Holly and I generally get pulled aside after meetings, and then we'll usually get those personal questions, and they have our information. They can always call us or come meet with us as well. So we make ourselves available for those questions, but we can't seek them out, so.
So the headline is, if you're using University of Utah doctors, this is going to impact you, please come to the meeting, that kind of thing.
Or if you're on Ozempic,
On Ozempic,
just know
okay.
that's not gonna be covered
Great.
going forward. Now, the way it works, you know, they'll take Pacific Sources medications and they will cover them for the first 90 days. So they'll be able to fill those for 90 days, which gives them 90 days to get off that medication or find a therapeutic alternative. So they'll be able to fill that Ozempic for 90 days. Then after that, they're gonna have to figure out whether they qualify for Manjaro or find something else.
Councilman Bates.
Thank you guys for the presentation. You said the second year cap was 12.5%?
12.9%.
12.9. So AJ, if our experience continues to trend down, that's just a ceiling. So our increase could be less than the 12.9.
Yep, just like I told you with Rexburg, our ceiling was 9.9. They came in at 5%, and we negotiated a flat renewal on the second year. So it's not like we're guaranteed to get the 12.9, but that's just our ceiling. But if claims are starting to go up, we ran 130% last month. We'll have to watch it through the summer. If claims are going up, that could be our ceiling, that we could hit that. That's why we want to work on those discounts and things, and we'll work with the mayor to get those back down and in line with what Pacific Source has.
Awesome. Well, I think this is the right choice. That rate cap, I think, is huge, and it's a significant savings on the increase versus sticking with Pacific Source. So I would recommend we go with this as well.
If I can add, there's a question about University of Utah and how competitive they are, but IHC is tied to Select Health, and IHC is a significant player down in Utah. And so they have, it's not that they won't have service, they may have to change the physician, maybe up to that 8% possibly. But IHC has a significant network, and they're well rated. In fact, I think there was some research that IHC has, of course, won national awards, but they've got great options if they do need to make that change.
A couple of years ago, they actually surpassed the Mayo Clinic. They were voted #1 just for a year, but they did do it. They put that feather in their cap quite often. So,
And one thing that I would like to point out is a lot of times just the pricing of services down in the Utah facilities can be 30% less than here. So elective surgeries and stuff, like if we can educate our employees for a knee replacement to go down to either a Utah facility or use Skyline Surgical Facility, it'll be saving both the plan and the employee quite a bit of money out of pocket. And so that's another education point that I plan on hammering.
Mayor,
Yes.
some of the staff are married, and their spouses or partners might have an insurance also, and so they're double covered. So if the spouse who's a non-employee has an insurance that does factor in the U or network in the U, but then we also have Select Health that does not, how does this help as a secondary insurance, or how will it complement the other?
so that's going to be coordination of benefits. It's going to depend on that carrier. So if let's say it was you, for example. So who's having the service, you or your wife? Because that's going to be big right there.
Let's say it's me.
Okay, so if it's you, what's going to happen is you're going to have to, everything's going to run through Select Health first, and then that other insurance carrier is going to come in behind and has the option to pick up the out-of-network services, and it's going to depend on whether or not they do. Generally, they would just pay a percentage is what they would do, and they're not going to override the initial out-of-network. Now, let's say your wife goes and the University of Utah is in network, and then your insurance would come in and cover, her out-of-pocket expenses. She would be okay and in a much better situation than you would. And so that's where education's huge, so that the employees know in a situation like that. But if I was, advising them, I'd tell them, unless they got a serious health concern going on, double coverage anymore isn't worth the premium you're paying for it, so.
All right. Any other questions then? And from what I understand, AJ, even though there's that, maximum rate lock, we're not locked into a 2-year agreement with Select Health, are we?
Correct, we could move next year
We
if we
could
wanted
still
to.
shop around.
Correct, if we wanted to shop next year, we could shop. If we weren't happy with Select Health, which I don't think that'll be an issue, but if that was the case, we could move next year.
Okay. And I believe it's in order just to take a straw poll, and I don't believe, Connie, we need an official vote, but just a consensus on the second option with Select Health with the 7.12 increase. So everyone feeling good about that? So, okay. All right. Thank you for all your efforts.
Yeah, we have, hold on really quick.
Got just a couple more things.
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
We're real close.
Okay.
So that's the rate recommendation. So dental was the 8%, roughly a $40,000 increase. Vision was a rate pass with a 2-year rate guarantee from MetLife. Symetra was a rate pass, the 2-year rate guarantee. HealthJoy is a rate pass, the 2-year rate guarantee. And the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, is a rate pass. And the voluntary benefits with the surety a rate pass. The only other increase we have is dental, which was 8%, roughly $40,000 a year.
What does Symetra cover?
That's our life insurance policy, both
okay.
voluntary and the,
Base life.
yeah,
And rate pass just means no change.
yeah, flat.
Correct, yeah.
And that's it.
Okay. All right, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have fiscal year 2027 budget presentation. We will have the finance staff present as soon as we make the change over here.
Everyone keeps telling me that the air conditioner in this building doesn't work and I'm freezing cold. So, it works. That's really good news. I was whispering in Chantel's ear with the rate lock. I know it's a cap, but we can actually program that. And I mean, we have so much information, we might have fiscal year 28 done by the end of the year. So that's, at least we can look at it and then start making adjustments. That's a great place to be in. I just wanted to start this with addressing what the process has been. We changed it quite a bit, and I think that it's important to point out that this year we started with revenues, and we estimated revenues. I am a conservative person, and so those revenues were estimated conservatively. And then we estimated wage and wage-related expenses. And in doing that, we programmed for human resources a step and a 1.5% increase for compensation. And then we did M&O. And I think in the past, they'd start with their expenses. And sometimes that's a little bit tricky because then you want to match your revenues to your expenses, and you can get a little more aggressive or a little more willing to estimate those revenues high. And I think it's important to point out that we didn't do that this year. So we're in a really, really good spot. What have we accomplished? We covered last year's deficiency in the general fund of $600,000. We did have an issue with an aggressive estimate on interest expense to the tune of almost $1 million that we've taken care of. I mentioned we programmed a 1.5 increase plus step for our wages for compensation. We've covered a significant increase or change. I know it was good news that we just heard, but it was a significant increase in our benefit costs that we've been able to manage. And we have a balanced budget. We're looking at $185 million, which is, we're just in a really good spot. What else have we got going? We have everyone thinking about compensation, staffing, and workload. That's the biggest expense at the city, and we're all reviewing it. We're all looking at it. We're all looking at ways to do our jobs, to do more with less. We've implemented tools to enhance the public knowledge about this process. And OpenGov is now accessible by the public. They can see everything. We're in the middle of looking at the feasibility of addressing public safety issues with facilities and moving City Hall. We're going to bring to you, and when I say we, I'm talking the city as a whole. I don't do all of this, but all of these guys. We're going to bring to you this next week, I believe it is, a plan for capital and deferred maintenance. I think it includes the deferred maintenance piece. And we continue to look at other revenue sources. We've implemented in the last 6 months a new investment strategy with Clearwater. That's huge. The next step there is to set up the trust for the cemetery. we continue to look for grants. We had a request in the budget that, because it was on the list of requests, we found some money through grants that will take care of that actual request. And we're looking for other partners and partnerships that we can use in increasing resources that we're doing. Discussions are being had at adjusting service levels. And those are hard discussions to have, and they're happening. It's not something that's gonna happen overnight, but it's something that we can adjust. It's kind of like, I'd like you to think of the budget as a management control system. It's a little bit like the reins in the bit of a horse, right? You put this in place and you go forward, and we're gonna pass this budget at some point. We have to by law. And then in November, something's gonna happen. And we're gonna pull on the right rein and we're gonna go a little bit right. And then in December, something's gonna happen. And we'll pull on the left rein and we're gonna go a little bit left. And that's the whole big picture of the process, is this: if you view the budget rather than just as numbers, but as a management control system. So to address how we got to the 185, we had the change in health insurance has helped greatly with the 47,000 that we showed you. We were out of balance in the general fund, and we have the general fund in balance. How we've addressed highway, streets, and roads is to have them fund their equipment purchase out of their reserves to the tune of 750 grand, to make the first step in the interest allocation something that we'll have to work on over years. And we've talked about that, but the first step we'll do with highway, streets, and roads, that's 250,000, 252, and the rest would be salary savings that we use. Something that we're going to have to, again, look at ways to adjust the way we do business to make sure that that's sustainable. But that's how we've addressed the issue this year. I think it's a good, solid budget. We are willing to entertain any of your thoughts, any of the things that you want to do going forward. We're in a good spot to do that, because as we make those adjustments, if you're wanting to, we'll just keep it in balance. But this is a budget that we could present, that we can work with, and that we could use to meet your goals.
Council, yeah, there
Thank
go,
you.
Nichols.
So in order to balance this budget, what had to give?
The salaries, like in the, the first quarter, we're gonna take a hard look at every position that comes open and request to be filled. And I don't wanna say hiring freeze, it's not that. But just, we've looking at the numbers, we think that in the first 3 months, if we're really diligent about delaying hirings and that's where we're coming up with that difference with highway, streets, and roads.
I think the biggest give, Councilman Nichols, is that we have a list of things that would be good things to do, good things we need to look at, and they're not budgeted yet. They're gonna have to come as we work on making those adjustments. So we really didn't add any of those to, that's probably the biggest give, is every department has something that they need to work on.
Right, so did we put in anything for the Center Clark Street beautification thing this year?
Not specifically, but we do have an idea going forward that I really like. There is a line item in Fund 78 called unrestricted that we've looked at. The mayor has a line item in Fund 78 with a little bit of money, and we've discussed about allocating to that line item. We would rename it mayor and council, and we've discussed the opportunity or the idea of taking 10% of the salary savings and putting it in that line item for not just that project, but for those things that the council has on their radar, so that there's a resource for you
That I understand.
to
Thank
do
you.
that.
One, we also talked about for FY 2026 that there's enough salary savings if we chose to, like for this budget year, rather than FY 27, we could do that. We could find some funding for the Clark Center interchange. That
I think we're
wouldn't,
working on getting a number.
yeah, we don't have, and the planning staff has the directive to get like a solid number. We have, the land group, landscape architects, that there was already a grant resource where they owe us a set of plans, a contractor-ready set of plans. So we're trying to get that firm number, but we've been discussing that in FY 26, that there's enough savings where we could fund that this year.
It'd be hard to specifically budget something that we don't have a number for yet, but I think we are in process. And I think that's something that we will probably see realized. It's been on the radar, seems to be one of the number one goals that we have.
Councilwoman Swanson.
So just returning back to this process of returning interest to the respective departments. So I just want to clarify, is there a generally accepted accounting principle that mandates that?
Sure. And I can get you the number, but there's also a state statute. When it's not specific in Title 50 of how the municipality runs, you default to Title 67, and that's how the state runs. And it's very clear in Title 67 that the funds, the interest earned on the funds should go to that fund.
Got it.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for explaining that, where that principle comes from. My concern with that process is that it may significantly impact the departments that don't create any revenue and therefore don't create very much interest for themselves. So there are some non-revenue departments, and not just enterprise funds, but departments that don't have any income, HR, planning. And it's my understanding in the past, some of that interest that wasn't returning to its respective department was used to help maintain those non-revenue folks. So I just want to register that concern, and if you have any comments about that, it'd be
It
interesting.
is a change. There's not a lot you can do about the differences between full accrual and modified accrual accounting. And that is what we follow per GAAP for our enterprise and our non-enterprise funds. It just is what it is. And I know that there's been some sentiment that there's disparity and it's unfair. And again, it just is what it is. That is the law. So I think you're right, and I think you understand it, and we'll need to make sure that those departments have the resources that they need to take care of their job, their duties, the things you ask them to do, without having to rely on the resource of interest revenue.
Okay.
And we can do that.
For this budget, there weren't any cuts, or there weren't any position adjustments in those non-revenue departments because of this interest
Well-
process. Is that true?
I think it would be every department has made adjustments because we have funded increases. We've covered wage and wage-related expenses. And so they've made adjustments in the way they're gonna have to do business because they don't have the same amount of resource in their maintenance and operation budgets. Now, do we call it cuts? Usually not, but could we? Yeah, we could. And they've made those adjustments. And that's why every department has made those types of adjustments in the general fund, for sure.
Enterprise funds, enterprise departments included.
Enterprise departments are different and they're funded by fees and they are not, if you follow the fee schedule, they'll be able to budget
Okay.
their expenses in full differently. And that's, I think, the play that you're talking about, the difference between a governmental fund, which is modified accrual, and an enterprise fund, which is full accrual, and they're different.
Okay. Maybe I'm missing a piece of information here. Are there only two kinds of funds that we have? Either a department or a unit is on an enterprise fund, full accrual, or a governmental fund, modified accrual. Is that correct?
We do have fiduciary funds.
Okay.
One of them is for police retirement. It's a very small
Yeah.
thing, and we're going to have another one with the cemetery that I mentioned. Those will be fiduciary funds. But it's probably only worth mentioning that you know that they exist. It's not part of this, a pertinent part of this conversation.
And an enterprise fund creates income, and therefore there's interest that accrues on that income, or if it's not spent right away, right, it goes into an
Correct.
account and gets interest on it. Are other governmental funds, do they have the same, are there interest accruing accounts for governmental funds? Or pardon?
Sure,
Yeah.
any fund that has a cash balance
Yeah,
would have an interest
okay,
accrual.
gotcha. So enterprise funds aren't or enterprise fund run departments aren't the only department that has the opportunity to accrue interest on
Oh, no.
whatever savings there is.
When I give you that cash report every month on the third Thursday,
Yeah,
that list of all those funds would contribute to the earning of interest for the city.
okay.
Every single one of them.
Okay, Councilwoman Satterfield.
Yes, so my basic brain here. So best practices, legal, not legal, what we're doing, are you feeling like it needs to go to them? Because I feel like this is a really hard take from the general fund.
Yeah,
you
I
guys,
think
I
it's a
feel like
change
would
we need
know.
to make, you bet.
And you feel like we need to make it. So you're saying we're not doing best practice by not giving them the 400,000 of interest? Because they have a great reserves. I feel like they're doing great. They have
We're not gonna give $4 million to the enterprise fund. We're gonna give them their share of the total interest. And the general fund's gonna get,
What do you mean their share? Are they not getting any?
right, we're gonna divvy it up based upon what their balance earned. So, and yeah, we need to do that. And I don't like the verbiage that we're doing something we shouldn't.
Right,
We can do it better.
we can do it better. But we're legally okay by doing what we're doing, or no?
I'm not an attorney.
Jared?
But we have one coming forward.
It's not always a good thing to be the attorney in the room. Jared Johnson, city attorney. Yeah, Rich and I have talked about this quite a bit, and the situation that we're in is good. The situation and the heading that we are on is better, and so this is the right path for us, and I feel really good about it.
Jepson, or go ahead still.
No, I should say it. That was fine.
Okay, Councilman Mangum.
I just have a comment that Rich and to the finance department and to the staff or department heads, I think this is a good budget. Some years you gotta have a flat budget. Some years you gotta see some decreases. But this is the type of year where I think that we're in. Looking at the economy and looking at the layout of the city, I think this is a good year to have a flat budget. and to try to project for growth in the next year in the budget. I look at it more as like a resting period, if you will. So that way we can kind of spring forward in the next year's budget. So thank you for your hard work.
I love that thought, and it is important. I would like to follow up if I can, just in agreement. You go 100%, you go 100%. Every year you have a project, you have a big project, you do that, and we do that per department, but it isn't bad to have a year where you step back and you let things settle. And there are some things going on that would make me say, well, that's not totally what we're doing, but it's not a bad way to look at things. That is true.
And Councilman Bates.
Yeah. Rich, I just want to make sure I've got the number correct. So the amount of interest income that should be allocated to streets, what is that amount? I thought last time we talked it was closer to like 400,000 or 500,000, but you said 252?
And that's my, I own that. I think I did say that that's what it would be, but I hadn't done the math. We have actually done the math, and it's 252 and some change.
Okay,
252,571.
perfect.
I like rounding, so those, but anyway, yes.
Okay,
That's what would, of our projection of what we're gonna earn, that's what should be going.
so really based off the budget we were looking at last time we met and today, other than the $47,000 difference that we already had, we only really needed to come up with $252,000 in difference in the general fund. Is that correct?
Can you say? ask
Yeah,
that
so the
one?
last time we met, the general fund was out of balance by 48,000.
Mm-hmm.
And with the interest income, that's at another 252,000.
So at that point, if you made that adjustment, it would have been 300, because you add those two numbers together, okay.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm following now.
300,000 was about what we had to find in the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so just to go along, it wasn't fully clear to me, the 300,000, how did we balance the general fund? What did we do to balance the general fund?
Well, so there was a change in our health,
Okay,
there was a change in benefits. That was a positive. Even with dental going up, the change with the health, there was a positive. And we are using,
So it was 23,000 and then 11,000 in general fund.
right, so that took us to 11,000, but we're using the salary savings to make that whole.
okay, all right. So the 11,000 was the gap that was left after the new, like, once we got those health insurance numbers?
Right.
Okay, so really, I mean, this was very minimal, what needed to change in the general fund from the budget we saw last time.
Right, and we do talk about these differences, and we have to balance. It has to be a zero balance, but I like your word that really, I mean, if you have a difference of 47 or 36 or 11, you're in balance. These guys do a really good job, and as far as I can tell, and I've looked back several times at several different things, they haven't gone over. There's two competing rules here, right? You can set your budget at whatever you want. We could set, we're proposing 185 million. If we wanted to, we could propose 225 million. That gives you the spending authority, but there's also another law, state statute, that says you can't deficit spend. You can't spend more than you have. So you can set your budget at 225, but if you only bring in 185, you better only spend 185 or have the resources to cover the difference, right? And so that's why when I look at that 47 in the past, I was like, oh, we're so close. It's balanced. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make the point of, like, I'm a huge proponent of us reallocating this interest income. I agree with what our attorney has said, that this is the better path for us to be on. This change obviously really didn't require a whole lot of changes from where we were the last time we met because of the health insurance. And so I'm glad we're on this path to start reallocating these funds. And I understand, it will require adjustments on the general fund side. But one thing I think we don't always talk about or look at is this is significant income that we're moving back to water. It eventually would be moving back to water, WPC, sanitation. My hope would be that once we reallocate this, our rate studies would help bring down our utility rates. And when we look at our Alice population, which we talk so much about, you're going to affect that population so fast by lowering their water and their sewer and their garbage rates. That's a direct effect on them. And so I wanted to express, last time we talked with the budget, there was some discussion about it being an as-is budget. And as I've talked with department heads and with finance, what I didn't realize at the time was how much work had gone into getting to where we were with what was presented last time. It wasn't, I think in my mind, saying it was a flat budget doesn't really demonstrate how much work was done by every single department and hard decisions that were made by you guys in finance and each department to get there. So I just really want to express, how grateful I am for all the hard work that went to getting to where we were. If we had, the interest income last year is a real sore point for me, but, we had $1 million less in revenue in interest. It takes a lot of work to make that up. It takes a lot of hard decisions. So I just really want to say I'm grateful to even be where we're at, and I understand it took a lot of work to get there.
I appreciate you bringing that up. Especially, I had that on the top of my paper and I didn't know if I would say it or not. And I feel like I owe these guys an apology because I said status quo, and there's nothing status quo about this budget at all. Mm-hmm. They've done some heavy lifting in trying to fit what they do into, we say flat or less in some line items, right? I mean, they've made adjustments that they're going to have to live with this year, and it's doing more with less.
Flat in
So I
spite-
should not have.
Yeah,
Chantel knows that for 2 weeks I've been beating myself up. I shouldn't have said that. That was my.
flat in spite of high inflation. It's really tricky. Yes.
I agree with that. Council members do not see any of the meetings that happen when, we're doing other things and the city is running, right? So I express my appreciation for that as well. And by extension, I think it's important to revisit the idea I think that Councilman Bates brought up, and that is to take a look every quarter, if not more often, at the salary savings that are coming in on a quarterly basis, and then working on opportunities to amend the budget and use some of that salary savings for some line items that I think are important for the city. And I'd imagine a lot of those things were not put into the budget. A top of mind example would be beautification efforts. Of course, that's really important for us. And then things like tarp for the pool. I visited the animal adoption facility last week, and they desperately need a crematorium there. And that's something not a lot of people, I think, understand or would otherwise see unless you take a tour and look at that freezer. It's tragic. So I think many departments have these specific requests that I'm pretty sure didn't get included in this budget. There's a long list of them. So I want that to I want that to be a priority for us, to not leave this budget until next cycle, but to check in with it. I would even suggest monthly. I don't know how people feel about expanding their time to commit to that, but I think it should be a much more active managerial document maybe than has been in the past.
I like it.
Rich, could you recap what we talked about before the meeting? Like some of the maintenance items that came up, like the pool cover and the parks, and like there is some things built in. Like there was like that 114,000 reserve in Parks or Rec. Just there is room for some of those items that came up.
I think what the mayor's alluding to is this list of things that we haven't done. As we go forward, month to month to month, there will be, there are things change, there are opportunities arise. If we give our department heads the leeway to work, I mean, in essence saying, okay, here's your $1 million, go get your job done. They're very creative and they're gonna get those kinds of things done. And it'll amaze you. But so there's a list of things and, well, for example, I don't know if this is a good example. Sometimes I hate getting too specific, but there was a mower on the list. Well, because someone else heard that need, we were able to find some grant money. So that one's going to be taken care of. And we'll have things like that happen as we go along. I love the idea of revisiting it. The time frame and how we do that will have to work out. We won't always have to amend the budget to do that. Some of those things we can do through general journal entries. If we journal the money, freeze that money out into a different department, as long as we're following fund accounting, we can do it that way, and that's not a problem. So we'll just have to address, as the specifics come to us, we'll just have to address that. But yeah, I like the vision.
Yeah, Councilwoman Satterfield.
Yeah, I love hearing that. I love hearing that we're team players, that we're all working together as a group. I love that. I love the idea of maybe even having a list or a document that's like, hey, put the needs in, and if something like that comes up, so that Christine Howell can look into those grants. A thought that I've had, that I've talked to the mayor about, and Butler, was the zoo. And I know that this might not be this year, next year, the other, but this is like a long-term type thought process. We subsidize the zoo for $900,000. We make $100,000 a year off that. So my thoughts are this. I want to do a community survey and ask 2 questions. One question, do you, as a community, want the zoo that costs us $900,000 a year to keep up? Or do you want to do something different? If you want to do something different, what would that suggestion be? That way, if we want it and want to keep the zoo and the rehabilitation center wonderful, we're here for the community. If not, let's relook at that and decide if that's something we want to do differently. And if so, how can we give the time for the zoo to reallocate, maybe trying to find different funding? And if not, then do something different. That's a lot of money. And if we want to keep it, great. If not, let's do something different. Thought.
I've done things like that through SurveyMonkey. We could have, we'd probably want to coordinate with Ann, and maybe planning could help us. They might have used SurveyMonkey before or something like that. Somehow get that information out. Something like that it's a big project. I think it's a good discussion to have. You're probably looking at 2 or 3 years to do something like that.
I want to just use a little caution on this front. I don't want this survey to be SurveyMonkey. I don't want it to be a Facebook poll. It needs to be a statistically valid survey, and it needs to be crafted very carefully. They also cost money. So if we choose to do that, great, but let's make sure we do it right. Because a Facebook poll,
That's not good enough.
it's
Needs to
not very
be,
helpful.
yeah, very scientific, statistically valid.
Yeah. So we'd have to go about it the right way, for sure. And again, I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just saying this is a thing I feel like we should look into. And if the community wants it, great, we'll keep it.
Do we
Because it's
have
for the
any
community.
experience with that?
With,
I mean, I've not been
Specifically-
here, right? Do we know where to go, what company, who would do it, how to do it?
yeah, so we did use a statistically valid survey as part of the PROST. I did call them and chat with them. They recommend a minimum of 400 responses to be statistically valid, which means they continue to mail them out. You can still do an online version of that, but the mail-in is really where they find the right demographics to make sure it's valid. That's about a $16,000 cost. I think we spent about $20,000 during the PROST for 500 to make sure it was statistically valid.
Yeah, just for clarification, PROST is Parks and Recreation Open Space Trails Plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and years ago, oh, sorry.
Oh, go
Years
ahead.
ago, we had, I got a survey just by email. I think it was through Parks and Rec. I mean, my life goes too fast. I'm not sure when it was. I was so excited because I had talked about parks. What do you like? There was probably 15 questions, and I was like, oh my gosh, they care and it was so great. So something like that, or mail in, something to think about. But I thought it was great as a citizen.
Yeah, that type of survey would come through our portal of users. So it's really just to the people that we know have been spending money on our programs and saying, what else do you like?
Gotcha.
So it wouldn't necessarily be statistically valid. We're just saying, this is the group that we know has spent money with us and used our services.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Okay, we had Councilman Bates and then Councilman Paulson.
Yeah, just quickly, kind of some parting thoughts on the budget for me. I'm happy with where we're at with this budget. I think a lot of hard work has gone into getting where we are. And so I'm happy to move forward with the numbers that we have. But I kind of do view this budget as a stepping stone to some more difficult decisions that we're going to have to make. This interest allocation is going to be, this was, I think, maybe the easiest step we've taken to start with that. It's only going to get more difficult. And I'm happy with this budget, but I do, from my point of view, there's some structural issues with the city's budget in general. And that is, I think there's an imbalance between wages and benefits and our maintenance and operation. And you listen, a lot of things that Councilmember Swanson brought up, they're all maintenance and operation needs, and that's what we hear the most about. And I feel like we have a tendency to go directly to cutting M&O when there's a need to find savings, rather than taking a hard look at positions and service levels. And so I'm excited for us to have more ongoing discussions as it sounds like, and I'm hopeful that FY '28 is going to be, we're not going to wait till June to talk about FY '28. We're going to, it's going to be an ongoing discussion. And so I think this budget sets the stage for us to really start talking and making plans. That's what we talked about last time a lot, right? Is we need to have a plan for how we're going to accomplish this. And I just don't see any way we're going to accomplish some of the changes that we need to make without having difficult conversations about service levels and wages and benefits.
I agree. And I would just add, Councilmember Bates, we don't need to wait until the next budget cycle. If we have a meeting in a quarter or a month and you guys decide to change a service level of whatever department, we can implement that now.
Yeah,
And that'll be good. We'll see what happens and it'll roll through into the next budget. So we can we can make those effective changes
Yeah,
as
and
we
one-
go.
Sure, and one thing we've talked about in detail, as it came up with the compensation study, the let's do a compensation study. But then there's a right sizing study too, where you look at like levels per department, and I don't have any idea of what it will show. But we think we can find the resources to do something like that, and I would advocate more so for the right sizing study
Yeah.
versus the compensation study, because what I there's always disparities, but from what I understand, when we did our last compensation study, there were only 5 positions with everything that were shown to be overcompensated. And so it just kind of opens up I think I know what the outcome might be, but I think more so like that, I think we were calling it a right size study. I can't remember the terminology, where you look at like staffing levels per department, and some will probably show that more are needed, some will show okay, but some may show less. So priority wise, I would rather do that type of study than a compensation study.
I would agree.
So, and we've talked about we can make that study happen sooner rather than later. So, and Councilman Paulson, did you have something?
Yeah, so like I fully agree and respect balancing the budget, it's necessary, but I also want to emphasize that I fundamentally believe we are a government providing services for the people, not a profit-seeking corporation. I just want to make that really clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
May I ask a question? Hayden, are you open to a question?
Yeah.
So with what, can you give me some examples of how you see that shifting into danger if we don't keep that in mind? So in terms of our discussion that we've had this morning, what do you see as the dangers of that
My
mindset?
concern, and I'm not saying you're advocating to abolish the zoo, but even opening that can of worms worries me. Okay, what's next? The pool, parks, we're not gonna fund sidewalk maintenance, et cetera, because they cost money. Like, that's my concern.
I think, I'm not trying to take your words, but I think what he's trying to say is sometimes we offer things that, and we do it because we're a government, because no one else will, and it isn't going to make money. But we do it because that's our job as the government.
Well, I think you take a real close look at cost versus value. You have to have that scale, because you're right, everything we do pretty much is gonna cost money. The cost versus value, keep that in mind.
I do have one question I would like to propose to you, because I want you guys to own it instead of someone thinking that we set that. It's a small amount of money, but it means a lot to the people who requested it. We have those community requests, and they've been budgeted at $138,000, which is the exact same budget that they had last year, but they requested more. And I want that to be clear, and I want you guys to say, yes, that's, in your mind, that is what you want to budget those at, instead of them thinking staff set that.
What was the total amount? We budgeted 138. What was the total amount of all the requests?
199.
That's not much in my mind, in a $185 million budget. I don't know how we can't
Right.
find $40,000 or whatever the difference is.
And so you're thinking work on finding the difference or leave it at 148? What are you
I
saying?
would, if we can find whatever the difference is, it's not much.
We'll go look
I would love to see us try and match what they're requesting.
what their request is.
Yeah, and just straw poll on that, how is everyone else feeling about that, finding that extra 40,000? Yes. Yeah.
I may just maybe devil's advocate for a moment here. There are many organizations, and I didn't really hear from one of them that I didn't think had a good case and provides a good, important service. to our citizens. My concern is that number can grow. I mean, that any year, any number of civic-minded organizations, or maybe some that aren't so civic-minded, can come to us and ask for that money. So it's not the city's job to fund other outside organizations as much as I would like to. But I think of resources like the Portneuf Health Trust, and the clinic, the free clinic comes to us and asks for money. And I think there are at times other revenue sources that are more appropriate for some of the folks that have asked. Now, I don't mind donating to any of those organizations again, but I do feel like we can't become an ever-increasing source for outside organizations to look to make their budgets whole. So that's my concern there. And keeping that within reason is important to me.
I think there's a legitimate case for keeping it the same. We've asked our departments to do less.
Yeah.
So I understand it is a small number, but I guess I want you guys to make sure you own it. And it's
Yeah,
not,
You know, after you put it that way, it's just a straw poll, but I'm gonna shift back a little bit on we have had the departments tell them to keep it flat, and if we're up here increasing the outside, I'm like not feeling good about that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, the only one I would advocate for, I feel strongly about the neighborhood associations and matching what they requested, which I know was more than they requested last year. And they're ones that don't really have any other revenue source outside of us. You know, I think the free clinic and different organizations, SICA, whoever, they all have grant opportunities and other funding sources that match, like the health trust. But the neighborhood associations, I feel like, really are tied very closely to the city. I think it is, what they do is a real force multiplier for the city. So if we're going to keep them the same, I would like to see the neighborhood associations at least get the full amount they asked for.
What's the difference in?
Yeah, I think
They-
they were
they
20, asked for 5,000 apiece, and it was 2,500 last year, from what I recall.
well, and they're asking for 30.
Which for 6 neighborhood associations, 2,500 more
I just looked
for
at the
each
total.
one. So Councilman Paulson or Mangum, someone down there had a question.
Oh, no, I just thought you were,
Yeah,
no, I understood what you're saying.
okay. So Councilman Mangum.
I agree with Councilwoman Swanson. I think that leaving them the same is prudent, because next year, let's say we get 30 applications, we can't service every single one of these applications. And what dictates the parameters to say that we will fund this one, but we won't fund this one, but they do similar things, or whatever. And so, again, like she had stated, we did ask the departments to cut quite a few things and to come with the lower budgets. And so I think that it's wise for us to do the same thing. And I don't think that it's the responsibility of the city to fund these nonprofits or all these organizations. We're not only a city government, like you had said, offering services, but we here are also representatives of the people who live within this city. And so when we do this, some of these are tax dollars that we're throwing at some of these organizations. And there are other opportunities for grants and other opportunities for them to seek funding. I do agree with Councilmember Bates that these neighborhood associations, they do some great stuff within their neighborhoods, and it is a force multiplier within the community. If we could increase that, I'd probably be in favor of that, but everything else, I would say we'd leave it about where it's at.
Yeah, and on the neighborhood associations, it's just to pipe in with that, they've done a really great job about going out and leveraging the money. For example, on the Purse Park, the Bonneville neighborhood received $2,500. They went out through NeighborWorks, got a $40,000 Wells Fargo grant, got a $10,000 IFT Foundation grant, and they turned our $2,500 into $52,500. And Alameda Park, the Freckleton Park, there's many out there where I think they have proven, I'm not the executive director anymore, so there's not a conflict of interest, but they've done a wonderful job about bringing assets to our parks and our green spaces. I think they've proven themselves to have that multiplier leveraging effect.
So, serving on that board, we served together while you
Yeah.
were the executive director, and I'm still on that board. They take a lot of care in their neighborhoods and in the community as a whole. And so I would never dispute that. I believe that they're doing some great stuff. However, though, each one of those organizations could probably say the same exact thing. So to keep it fair, how do we specifically say, let's give the neighborhoods funds, but then we don't give additional funds to the free clinic or to Meals on Wheels or to the senior center or to whoever? And so that's kind of my perspective on keeping it where it is.
I said it last year that I don't want to be arbitrary, so I think everyone gets it or nobody gets it. Because like, how do you cherry pick between meals for poor people versus, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it just, yeah, it's true.
Okay, so just another quick straw poll, like what's the feeling with the flat fund? Go ahead, Rich.
So there's finite resources, and we've identified one. It's a small resource for you guys to do things you want to do with. Is this your top priority, to use those funds that way?
Are you talking about the new line of mayor and council?
Right, where we would put Fund 78, money for, and you guys have talked about using that to beautify the Center Street exit. What's your priority?
In light of, this is a good discussion, by the way, thank you for everybody's bringing some good intelligence to this. When we sat down and did our strategic plan back in, was it February, March?
Yeah, around there.
Around there, that was our top priority, was beautification as a driver of economic development. And then economic development, we hope, drives housing, and housing costs lower. And so, I mean, you can go to you can think in a very small picture way about funding public agencies, or you can zoom out and think in a larger picture way, in sticking with the strategic plan that we've identified, and that priority is making Pocatello a place where people want to come and live and do business. So I kind of do that zoom in, zoom out when I'm thinking through this here. So my preference would be to keep it flat for everybody, although I think Councilman Bates' argument is a strong one, and the mayor as well, about these city, the neighborhood organizations, because they do a lot of good work. But I'd like to keep it flat and use that money in Fund 78 to focus on our top 3 strategic plan priorities.
Okay. Yes.
I agree. We go out as a city, different departments, they go out to find community partners to help with different projects and things also. And so now we have community partners coming to us, asking for us to help fund projects. Where does it balance, right? So I would suggest that we keep it flat. because we're all in the, yeah, anyway.
Okay. And I want to hear feedback from everyone, so what are you thinking, Councilman Nichols?
Keep it flat.
Okay.
I'm fine if we keep it flat, but I'll just say this, like with the discussion about how do we pick and choose? The city's not a healthcare provider. That's not part of our mission at all. So I would gladly say, let's not give any money to the free clinic and take the difference and give it to the neighborhood associations, which I feel like much more aligns with what the city's mission is. They do beautification projects, they help with our parks. I know the university neighborhood, they have plans, they want to raise money to light Caldwell Park, or they've talked about trying to do maybe bulb outs in their neighborhood. Those are things I think line much more with the mission of the city. And so I'm fine to keep it flat, but I'd like to give the neighborhood associations the full amount they ask for.
Yes.
Let me flip this. If we keep it flat, that doesn't mean that we can't come back and amend the budget or otherwise pull some money out of the mayor and city council fund in 78 to, at a later point, distribute to that organization for a specific project. So I think that doesn't close the door to being able to do that, because I agree with you on your analysis there. But I would rather do it that way than upfront create this, at least for this budget cycle, this discrepancy in who gets what. And that, I think that's the better way to handle that.
Okay.
One thing that does happen here in this particular instance is once the budget's finalized and we've published and we have that, they'll request their money. And once we cut those checks, I said there's a lot of ways we can adjust in every month and go forward. But once that check's out the door, it's out the door. So that'd be in one of those instances, that wouldn't be adjustable.
So.
But we could, going forward, if there was a particular project
Yeah,
in neighborhoods, like you said, that is all doable, yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, what are you thinking, Councilwoman Satterfield?
This is a great discussion. You know, I agree. All the departments, they've done their cuts. I feel like we should do a flat thing. It's hard, like all those things that we just talked about, all the different organizations, they all help our community, right? But I think this year with how tight everything is, what we're doing and trying to, I think we should do it flat. And hopefully, because I agree with Dakota, and Anne, to be able to come back and do some of those things would be great, because that is what our priorities, I guess you should say. So, quick question, free clinic, how much did they ask? I don't have it in front of me.
What did they do there? Oh, right here. What was it, last year? They didn't ask for an increase.
So they didn't ask
There's
for an
an
increase,
amount,
but would they,
It was, there's 20.
we give them
20,000.
20?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We gave them this year 20 and they asked for 20 again.
Because the idea was on the table, like, don't fund them even the 20,000 and shift that to neighborhood associations. If I understand Councilman Bates' suggestion.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the free clinic. I'm just making an example. I think we can easily say, yeah, we can pick and choose, because I think some of these organizations line up much more with what the city does and is responsible for than other. We're not in charge of Medicaid or healthcare. So, I think you can easily say some of these organizations line up with the city much more directly than others.
Okay, then anything else, Councilman Mangum? If not, Councilman Paulson.
I just think flat.
Okay. Okay, I'm hearing keep it flat, but have the door open on that Fund 78. Like if a neighborhood association approaches us for a project, we can look at that mayor council line item. So that's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Yes.
And could we, on that, let the neighborhood associations know, we're just keeping it flat, not giving them extra this year, but if there's things that they want to come bring back to us, or email the mayor, or I don't know, that process, but so, because we don't know what they're doing, right? So how would we, a communication so
Yeah,
that they know
I-
that,
I could handle that.
okay,
I got the connections there,
okay.
so.
I-
Okay. All right. Any other issues you'd like to discuss, council?
So, just really quick, going forward, it sounds like you're happy with what we've presented. We probably do not need to meet on the 9th for any further discussion. We will have a public hearing, the first meeting of August. And of course, I mean, you can take into account whatever is said there, and we'll have 2 weeks to mull that over if there's something that comes up there. And then on the second meeting of August, we adopt. And then we take it from there and make sure everything's. We will publish in July. And that's a good recommendation. We probably will bump the publication up. Not that it's what we plan on adopting, but if you don't bump that publication up a certain amount, if something happens in the public hearing that changes your mind, we need the room to navigate that. And once you publish, you can't go any higher, you've got to go lower. So we're presenting a $185 million budget. We'll probably publish something higher than that, but that's navigation room for you guys. My expectation today would be that if nothing changes, we would pass the 185. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I hope that we can do today, that we can actually take a vote to publish the budget if
Okay.
we're in that position, which I feel like we are.
Well, I do too. What do you think? We should bump 200?
So if there's do you have anything else, Rich?
I would just say, so if you're gonna state a number, let's publish something like 185, 600,000. 185,600,000, knowing that our target is 185,399.
Because
Is
we
that
can
making
only-
sense?
Because we can only go down from here.
That is correct.
So, yes.
That's what I would propose.
Yeah, Councilman Nichols.
And that's enough, in your opinion? Enough of the
I
buffer?
I do. I think that gives us plenty of maneuvering room. I think if there's issues or changes, they're not gonna be grandiose.
Okay.
So Mayor or Jared, is this an action item that would require a motion? So with that, I would move that we would publish the budget as is at 185,600 as suggested by Rich Morgan.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Can I have a question?
Yes,
Does that include
please.
the 185? Oh, 600 is what you,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to publish the budget in the amount of 185,600,000. That was a first from Mangum and a second from Councilwoman Swanson. Any other discussion before we take the vote? If not, if you could call the roll, please, Connie?
Mangum,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Bates,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes,
Paulson,
Yes.
Satterfield. Yes.
All right.
there we go.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much, staff, for taking the time and sharpening the pencil and all your work. That's much appreciated by all of us up here. So we are adjourned.
Yeah.